So in today's video, I take an in-depth look at the wide receiver room with the upcoming suspension for Rashee Rice in mind, making a case for why the Chiefs need to add a veteran wide receiver to the room. On top of that, I'll go over some options on who I think it could be. But before I do, let's get into some of these roster moves the Chiefs made today to make room for the draft picks and UDFAs. But first, how about those? All right, first up, to make room for the draft picks and UDFAs the Chiefs are indeed signing to the roster, there had to be some people let go, and so far, the Chiefs released wide receiver Anthony Miller, wide receiver Shi Smith, and defensive end Jordan Smith. Again, to make room for UDFAs and draft picks, they also withdrew their tender offer for linebacker Cole Christensen. More moves are probably incoming as well, but thought I would at least let you guys know as they come in. And then, the Chiefs officially did not pick up the fifth-year option of Toney yesterday, which honestly is a complete surprise, as I was 99% sure Toney was an absolute lock next year at the measly $14.4 million. Okay, jokes, obviously. This was a no-brainer and not really news, but yesterday was the deadline to pick up a player's fifth-year option, and Toney was one of the 12 players whose fifth-year option was declined. And that officially means it's a contract year for Toney, and hopefully that puts a little more fire under him this year in general as he seeks out a second contract from somewhere that's probably not going to be Kansas City. I'm rooting for the guy, of course, as I would root for any player currently on the Chiefs, because when a player in Kansas City does well, that typically benefits the team as a whole, and I'm here for the W's. However, I'm not going to hold my breath here in regards to Toney. Sure, he's one of the most athletic players on the roster when healthy, and it's probably not even close, but after 3 seasons in the NFL, he's averaged 27 catches for 253 yards and 1 touchdown each year. And honestly, those are the stats that I predict Toney will have this season, though of course I hope I'm way wrong about him. But if you have your expectations reasonable or average, it will not set you up for utter disappointment, and then you'll be pleasantly surprised if those expectations are exceeded. So let's freaking go Toney. Now, with that being said, I want to stay on the subject of wide receivers in this video because there have been several free agent wide receivers recently signed since the conclusion of the 2024 NFL Draft. DJ Chark agreed to terms with the Chargers on a 1-year deal worth up to $5 million, a nice pickup for LA considering they really needed wide receiver help. Sure, they drafted Ladd McConkey and have Quentin Johnston for whatever he's worth, but prior to the draft, they cut Mike Williams and then traded Keenan Allen to the Bears. The Bills then signed Chase Claypool to a 1-year deal. So there's that. Surely Keon Coleman and Chase Claypool will make up for the loss of Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs, right? Wrong. Then the Dolphins signed Odell Beckham Jr. to a 1-year, $3 million deal that's worth up to $8.25 million, because why? I have no idea, but at least we don't have to worry about OBJ signing with the Chiefs. However, I do think I'd like to spend more time not really worrying about the Chiefs wide receiver room, but making a case for why I think the Chiefs should seriously consider adding another free agent vet on a cheaper deal, especially with the potential possibility of Rashee Rice being suspended. Shoot, even if Rice was not getting suspended, I think it might be worth bringing in a vet. That might be me overreacting just a little bit from last year, but Mahomes was literally melting down on the sidelines and he needed some help. So just like Super Bowl 55, you lose because your O-line was decimated. I would much rather overcorrect in the wide receiver room and just give Mahomes another weapon. It's not a huge weapon in this day and age of free agency. It's just going to raise the overall floor in competition. We're going to get into it, but I just think it's worth seriously considering. I mean, yeah, you have Hollywood Brown, great pickup, Rashee Rice heading into year 2, and then you have the rookie first-round pick, Xavier Worthy. Worthy, in theory, is the much better MVS replacement. He's faster, quicker off the line, can be used behind the line of scrimmage and pre-snap motion, return punts, and is also a better route runner than MVS already. He's also only 21 years old with lots of room to grow, but since Worthy is a rookie, it's hard to know for sure what his production is going to look like straight out the gate in the big leagues. For starters, it's going to take him some time to learn KC's playbook, and then time to learn how to read NFL defenses so he can be on the same page with Patrick Mahomes. Remember, based on coverage shown mid-route of a play, Mahomes is expecting his receivers to adjust accordingly, and he will throw to said receiver based on that assumption. That's why last year things appeared off several times. Mahomes saw the coverage one way and threw the pass based on that, and more times than not, the receiver did not adjust accordingly. Yes, some of those were on Mahomes. He's not perfect, but it's safe to blame the pass catchers the majority of the time rather than the best quarterback in the NFL. So honestly, there's a bit to assume here about Worthy and his production from the jump, though if they use him as a field stretcher, that may make things a bit more simple for him to start things off, which could definitely help. You could also scheme touches for him, and he could be the returner, though if Toney makes the roster, I'd also be fine with Toney doing it as well because that man is dangerous with the ball in his hands. Then Hollywood Brown should definitely take a step up this year in Kansas City's offense and is a great speedy addition. Mahomes has praised his route running, and Andy Reid actually said they don't view him as a deep threat guy, although yes, he can do that. So you've got Hollywood being used in creative ways and also offsetting Kelce in the middle of the field, Worthy taking the top off, and then Rashee Rice being used in the slot and on quick passes. Things for Rice could look similar to how they used him last year, or he could possibly take a bigger role in the offense as reported earlier this offseason, which would be great. The biggest issue here with Rice is the obvious elephant in the room. A suspension is looming, and the Chiefs are reportedly bracing themselves for him to miss at least 8 games. And if you miss roughly half the NFL season, it's pretty difficult to play a bigger offensive role in year 2. The biggest complication is we don't know if it'll be this season or next season. It all depends on how quickly Rice's legal situation reaches its conclusion. If it's quick, i.e. before the start of the season, he will most likely be suspended this year. But if the process is still playing out at the start of this season, the NFL will most likely wait to suspend him next NFL season, 2025. This puts KC's front office in a bit of a pickle. Do they sign a veteran wideout sooner rather than later with guys starting to get scooped up? Or do they stay patient to let the legal process play out a bit longer before making a move? Well, I say screw that and go get a guy. Don't do anything stupid, overreaching, or overpaying for a middle tier wide receiver, but go get someone who could fill in the role for Rice to some extent and at least raise the overall floor of the room when injuries happen. That would only benefit the room overall, not hurt it. If Rice is suspended and either Brown or Worthy get hurt, that leaves the team to lean more heavily on Justin Watson, Sky Moore, Toney, and Justin Ross. And answer me this, how high is your confidence level that one of those 4 will be a dependable asset for Mahomes and make a sudden leap this season? Justin Watson played his role well, so no disrespect to him. He was 3rd in receiving yards last season, only behind Kelce and Rice. But the drop-off even for Watson was pretty big. Kelce had 93 receptions, Rice had 79, and Watson had 27. That is a pretty big difference. And since I brought Kelce's name up, many will say, yeah, the wide receiver room is fine this year with who they have, even with a Rice suspension incoming, because they have the cheat code at tight end in Travis Kelce, who has been outproducing wide receivers his entire career. And while that's a valid point, do we really want the team to lean on Kelce as heavily as they have since Tyreek Hill was traded and bank on him staying healthy all season long while playing 90% of snaps? How about no? It was unfortunate and not common, but Kelce battled the injury bug last year, dealing early with that hyperextended knee, then tweaked his ankle, and while he did put up nearly 1,000 yards last year, he didn't look quite himself until the postseason when he got some rest during Week 18. Don't get it twisted, Kelce is the freaking GOAT, but the man will be 35 in October, and I think the Chiefs would be wise to not rely so heavily on him all season long. Sure, they signed Irv Smith Jr. this offseason to the tight end room, but he had 182 yards with the Vikings in 2022 and 115 yards with the Bengals in 2023. They then drafted in the 4th round tight end Jared Wiley, but I have no idea what to expect from him his rookie year. I mean, it's all a hopeful what if for me at the moment with Wiley, just like most every other rookie heading into the Chiefs system, though I am certainly rooting for him. Anyway, I shared all that to try and make a case as to why the Chiefs should add another veteran wide receiver before training camp. Hey, on a cheaper deal, okay? But the main question is, who? Well, Rice lined up half of his snaps in the slot last year, so a guy who can do some damage from there would be helpful. A QB-friendly guy who is decent in man or zone. And honestly, you don't need anybody insane either, just somebody who will, in theory, stay healthy and get on the same page with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, if Rice is out due to being suspended for half the season or whatever it ends up being, all you need is somebody who could produce more than MVS, who had 315 yards, or Sky Moore, who had 244 yards. It's not asking for all that much, especially if you can get a guy pretty cheap. Hunter Renfrow is available, and he was used primarily in the slot last year. Tyler Boyd is another option and could be an even better option than Renfrow. Quite possibly my favorite option on this list, though he's definitely going to be a bit more expensive. maybe more than the Chiefs would be willing to pay, but you never know. Zay Jones wasn't used in the slot much last year, but his last 3 years of production is more than any Chiefs receiver other than basically Hollywood Brown. Sure, Zay is nearly 30, but most of the free agents on this list are in their upper 20s or early 30s. So if you want to settle for a younger guy, maybe you bring back McCole Hardman on a one-year deal. He's not Rice, but again, is an option that's available. Some may absolutely hate that. Some may be indifferent. I'm going to lean indifferent only because he obviously knows the system and can play a depth role in this offense. Russell Gage is another intriguing one only because he would be cheap. He had a season-ending knee injury in August of last year and missed the entire season, but his 3 years prior, he averaged out at over 600 yards a season and is currently only 28 years old. Michael Thomas is one of the older guys on this list at over 31 years old, but if you could get him cheap enough, why the heck not? He is definitely going to raise the floor. He's a bigger bodied guy too, 6'3", 212 pounds, and outproduced every Chiefs receiver last year outside of Rashee Rice and Justin Watson only by 12 yards. I've also seen many calling for Byron Pringle's return, but I don't know. His last 2 years have yielded under 300 receiving yards, and I think there's better options out there. With all that being said, do you think the Chiefs should still add a veteran wide receiver? And if so, who do you think it should be and why? Or do you lean on the other side? No, don't overblow the Chiefs wide receiver room situation. It's going to be fine. They just won back-to-back Super Bowls and did so last year with a very mid wide receiver room. Some of you may be on the camp of adding a receiver, but wonder where the heck are they going to get the money? Well, the Chiefs do have the cap space to add some players, as they will have roughly $14 or so million still available after draft picks are signed. So again, there is some money. They're going to need some throughout the season, but they do have a little bit of money to play with. So let me know in the comments down below. And until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?